collaboration meetup group remote. We've got a phenomenal speaker today. I'm the host, Peter Ward. I've got a real croaky voice from the weekend of playing water volleyball upstate New York and shouting around on that. So we're talking about modern end user adoption techniques with Darcy Hess. So welcome, Darcy. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Very well. So you're from Rhode Island and you're dialing in here from what appears to be the broom cupboard in Massachusetts, is that right?
I am. I am down in the hallway in Boston having fun.
Are you sure they couldn't have put any more pictures on the wall for you?
I was working on it. I think I lost the battle.
Right. Okay.
So moving in.
So tell us, how long have you been working with SharePoint for?
I've been working with SharePoint since 2010, so 9 years now. It sure goes by fast, and about 3 different versions of SharePoint, and now in SharePoint Online primarily. So a lot of fun. Sure goes by fast.
Right. Okay. Very cool. And you're Microsoft MVP, and just tell us before you start. Tell us one thing personal. Okay. Just tell us one thing personal about you that no one else knows.
Well, not everyone in the tech world knows, but I compete as a member of the United States archery team, and I'll be competing in the Indoor World Cup Series in Europe coming this fall.
Oh.
Right. Okay. How did you get into archery then?
I used to perform in the Renaissance fairs back in California many years ago. And I had friends who ran the archery booth, and, kind of down the rabbit hole I went. Eventually picked up longbow, competed in that for a few years, went to a competition in Vegas where I was the only longbow shooter out of about 1,600 people, got made fun of by a team from Canada. And kind of went down the route of, shooting Olympic recurve for a long time. I was an Olympic alternate for the London Olympics, and then got into compound, and I kind of compete on all 3 styles now. It just, keeps me busy.
Very cool. So let's get focused on our target topic here of modern end user adoption. So Darcy, I will hand the floor over to you.
Thank you so much. I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, so let me know if everything came up.
Yeah, no problem. I got it. I think we're good.
Great. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about end user adoption for the real world. We talk about adoption a lot and the things that are a part of it, but we never really understand what the problems are and how to achieve those outcomes that we're looking for. So that's kind of good. All right. So kind of some of the things we'll go over. I'll just give a quick introduction slide if you guys ever need to reach me. We're going to talk about why adoption fails and some things that you can do to change it. And then hopefully leave you guys with a little bit of words of advice that you guys can take with you and help implement in your own environments and your own organizations. So a little bit about me. As Peter mentioned, my name is Darcy Hess. I'm a Microsoft MVP with Office Apps and Services. I run my own consulting practice up near Boston in Rhode Island. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions, concerns, or if you guys need help in the future for anything. All right, so why adoption fails? Inadequate user training comes up as one of the top reasons why people fail to adopt a new product. A lot of it is, I just don't know how to use this, or it doesn't work the same way as what I've been doing for X amount of years works. A lot of the times we go and training ends up becoming this really weird topic that we go talk about. And part of it needs to remember that training is a psychological thing. It's about how each person learns and retains information. For user training, a lot of the classic ways that we do user training that fail are putting everyone in a room for 1 or 2 days or a week or a specific period of time and just running through everything that could possibly be relevant to them. What happens is that the retention rate on something like that is very little to none. It's the same reason why trying to cram for a test the night before in college doesn't help you do better on the test. Users don't retain the information that they learned in training. So what can you do? We're going to talk about some options there to kind of help. Another thing is that it's hard to use. A lot of the times, especially in SharePoint, we're going to hear the term, I hate SharePoint. And when you ask a user why, they're going to come up with all sorts of reasons, whether it's hard to use, if it takes forever, if you're using a classic experience, it's very, very complicated. They just don't understand it. And they also don't understand how it can simplify business processes when implemented correctly. So not a great experience. Makes life a little bit difficult. This one's kind of a big one, lack of senior management support. Managers have to, be there to support their employees. And a lot of organizations, it's a top-down kind of scenario where we have a C-level executive that says, we are going to be going to Teams or we are going to be going to SharePoint because that, at the end of the day, is a better ecosystem or a better bottom line for us on the financial side. And what happens is that when users can't figure out the best way to do something, they're going to do something in any way possible to break free and be able to get their jobs done. And what happens is you end up with either shadow IT scenarios where if you've adopted Teams in your organization, as an example, users will go find a way to use Slack, or they will use Dropbox or Box or some alternative thing that they can download off the internet to be able to get their jobs done versus going down that solution that there is. So we want to make sure that when a new solution is being introduced into your organizations, that you not only get bottom-up support, but that you also have the senior management also backing those decisions and understanding what the true business problems that need to be solved and what those opportunities are when you're moving to a new system or when you're trying to roll out a change management process for that.
Okay, Darcy, this seems to be an ongoing conversation with SharePoint implementations, doesn't it?
Absolutely. SharePoint does not stop once you have it installed. It is an ongoing thing. And if you are now using the cloud versions of it, you have new features that are constantly being added and rolled out and adjusted. And your change management process has to be able to accommodate for that. And your managers have to be willing to support employees also being able to enable them on their own.
Okay, but why is this an ongoing issue? You've been doing SharePoint for what, you say 10 years now?
Pretty close, yeah.
Okay, why is this conversation still remaining the same?
This conversation remains the same because in a lot of organizations in the past, and this is slowly changing, IT owned the world, and IT was kind of the organization area where they were kind of the department that said no to everything. And what happens is when you say no, instead of let me work with you to find the best solution, people find a way to go around you. This conversation keeps happening because change will happen. When you implement SharePoint, even if it's an on-prem solution or online, you're still going to have things that change. You're going to have updates that come out. You're going to have totally different processes as the business evolves too. And if users don't understand how to solve those problems, then that's why this becomes an issue, is people kind of give up, or they go to the two people that have been able to adopt and understand it and can see the potential of it and just have them do it. And that doesn't work well for anyone, and it's not efficient in a company either.
Makes sense. Yep.
Which, speaking of, brings us to change management. With the new world, everything is being rolled out on a very, very short cadence. In the past, SharePoint would come out every 3 years and would say, okay, great, here's a new version of the platform, here's what's changed, here's what's the exact same, and go about your business. And then we'll see you in 3 years. Well, now with everything coming out, change management is an ongoing thing. As new functionality gets rolled out, as new web parts get rolled out, if you are still in Classic and considering going to the modern interfaces in SharePoint, that is a very, very drastic change for your users. Being able to understand how to roll that out and how to get users excited is going to be something that is monumental to the success of any adoption in your organization. You need to be able to figure out who those champions are and who are going to help you be able to roll this out. But you can't just roll something out and say that this is what it's going to be without kind of some support mechanism to help make that happen. One, on the technical side for change management, regarding any technical procedures that have to be updated, knowing that the help desk has to be trained on how to answer questions, all the way down to the end users who are just using it to try to do their jobs on a daily basis. What changed for them? And is there a better way to help them achieve their goals as you're kind of moving forward? So change management is going to be something that really has to be a very big discussion, even ongoing as new functionality is rolled out or as new features are obtained from the business as well. And then lack of support for mobile devices. For the longest time, SharePoint was not mobile friendly. If you pulled SharePoint up in the old Classic experiences, I'll say SharePoint 2013 and below, it was really a poor experience. You were stuck trying to pinch your screens and make it bigger, and you just really couldn't work well with it. With that, Microsoft kind of caught on the train and said, okay, we're going to realize that we need to go a mobile first approach for things. They started making SharePoint responsive if you are working in the online instances. And for those who aren't, guess what? We also now have a SharePoint app. So even though it's not the exact same experience, it's at least allowing you to access content wherever you are on any device that you need. This is important in the modern workforce. I myself today am presenting from somewhere that is not an office and not my home. A lot of us are constantly on the move, and the ability to stay connected to our content, to our teams, and be able to communicate and collaborate with others is still a really important piece of the business that we have to consider. So we definitely want to make sure that we do include mobile devices in that process, even if you're not using them currently. Okay. And the buzzword, governance. Adoption is one thing. It's saying, hey, I want to increase users using my solution or my product or my investment. But how do you make that easier for them to do? And a lot of organizations in the past, SharePoint would be something that IT would roll out. And then if you needed a new site, you had to go through some kind of provisioning process where you had to go ask IT to create the permissions. They'd have to add everybody to the site. A lot of the times they'd actually have to go create the site for you. If you had templates or anything else that had to be applied or custom branding, they'd have to do that for you. And then they kind of handed it over and said, congratulations, here's your document library. Well, what happens is people go, okay, that's a really horrible process for me to go through. IT has a big backup. It's going to take weeks to get this done. I need to be able to get work done now. So the idea of governance is we need to be able to take the sharp edges off of it. We want to make sure that people can do their jobs and we're not prohibiting them from being able to get their jobs done. But we want to make sure we remove the sharp edges, meaning we don't allow them to accidentally share content outside of the company or externally. We want to make sure that they don't do something that could be against the law or against any kind of compliance standards within the company. But we want to enable them to do as much as they absolutely can within their world. We want to make sure we just don't say no. Okay. Right. So we've talked a lot about the different kinds of problems that are happening and the big key components that happen to those. Let's talk about some of those things that we can actually change and help make this a little bit better. Okay. So we talked about change management. the lack of change management and processes to be able to roll out new functionality, SharePoint, Teams, Dynamics, the entire ecosystem is kind of a really big daunting challenge. So there's a couple ways to get people excited. And first thing that you can try is building out a drip campaign. Start several months before the actual launch of something. You can go find, if you Bing any of the internet launch videos that are out there, you get some really creative ones that get people excited about something new that's coming out. Not just a memo that, oh, we're switching technologies and you guys are going to have to learn something new. That's not a way to get people excited about it. So start drip campaigns. Think about emails, think about videos, think about putting something on the bulletin board if you have it. If you're using Teams, start channels to kind of get people excited about it. The next thing that we want to do is we want to create a guidance site. So we mentioned governance. Governance is really, really hard when you build out a 70-page governance document saying this is exactly how we are going to run things in our organization for this, and then it sits on a shelf where end users don't have access to it. They have no idea what those processes are or the rules for it, and no one else does either. It becomes shelfware and not helpful. We want to be able to create a guidance site that becomes basically a living governance plan. It can continually be updated. I'll show you an example of that. You can put training content there regarding Office 365. You can add news for new announcements of features, ways to help keep employees engaged in the product itself. Okay, try launching different challenges. Some of the best challenges I've seen have been things like coffee with a colleague. That could be a Yammer group or a Teams group or something like that, where it's the ability to help collaborate within the organization. And what happens is when you kind of crowdsource from internally, if you offered a $5 Starbucks gift card, believe it or not, they actually do really, really well. It gives you the ability to kind of use gamification to help people get excited about something. The idea of any change management process is to be able to build excitement and be able to get people to also want to use something and want to change. That is going to be your goal of change management. Okay, and I'll show you guys an example of a guidance site that you guys can kind of use. Okay, so training, right? Training, we already talked about, like trying to put everybody in a room for 8 hours isn't going to cut it. Training needs to be an ongoing process. It needs to be available in context when people need it. Because I'm not going to remember if I sat in a room 8 months ago and learned how to add a content type to a document, how to do that if I haven't done it for 6 months. I'm never going to remember. So being able to have those resources available at the time that people need it are going to be incredibly important. And some ways that you can do that is you can provide the guidance site, to which I'll show you an example. If you do internal videos, you can use the Office 365 video portal or Stream to be able to upload your own training videos. It's great when people can Google things and go find information how to add a document to a document library, but users, if the environment doesn't look the same, trying to necessarily understand what's happening in the real world versus your personal environments may look different and hold a different context for users. So provide basic videos on some business processes. Make sure that those videos are under 2 minutes. People don't have the opportunity to go and listen in on an hour video to learn how to do something. They need quick information that provides them just the basics of understanding how to go do it. And it's okay to do video part 1, 2, 3, and 4 if it's a complicated process, but this allows people to kind of pick it up as they need it and be able to go ahead and do some of those things.
Darcy, in terms of video, are you a big proponent? For my videos, I generally use Snagit. What are you typically using?
I use Camtasia a lot for my videos. I've also used Zoom. If I was doing like recorded webinars internally in the company for different things. Sometimes I've even just used a phone. And if I needed to show somebody how to do something, sometimes I've just had somebody with an iPhone behind me just record it, just as a kind of like a quick tip thing. So it really just depends. There's no need to go out and buy like a huge video recording system or anything like that. It can become as complicated or as simple as you need it to be. But the idea is understanding that people learn in different ways. Videos are one way that people learn these days. And you notice that a lot with people going on to influencer videos on YouTube and things and learning how to, fix their kitchen sink, which I've done. So very, very important role.
Cool.
Yeah. The next part of this is understanding who your champions are. Who are those end users? I'll call them power users for the sake of the conversation. But who are the users in your organization who just grasp onto the concepts of the technology really quickly? And they're usually the people that everyone else in their department goes to and asks questions of. Those are going to be what we're going to call your intranet champions. Those are the guys you want to get in a room together and train them, because they kind of become the train the trainer scenario, because everyone's going to them asking the questions anyway. Get those guys first. One, because they're going to catch on quickly. They can get excited about it. They see where the opportunities are in the organization to adopt the new solution and possibly even go, hey, we didn't think about this. Could we use it for X, Y, and Z as well? That's a very important and very powerful group. They probably hold more power influence-wise in the organization than upper management does. So we want to make sure we grab those guys ahead of time. With that, you can create a Yammer group specifically for those champions. And what that does is it allows those people to come together and talk about, hey, I'm having difficulty with this. Does anybody have an idea on how I can get around this? Or, we just rolled this out and I'm seeing that, people are coming to me with a lot of these questions. Can we get these questions to the help desk so that they can answer them instead of maybe people coming to me all day? Different ways to kind of help collaborate with those people who catch on to that technology very soon. That Yammer group should also be for anyone who's like a site owner and has to be able to build a site or create content or edit content or understand permissions. That is a great opportunity for people to kind of help each other solve those problems. And also you have a way to be able to go ahead and find out what the answers are and kind of create that knowledge base as well. Some organizations like doing like little power hours, similar to the Lunch and Learn today. It's an hour that can be traded off between different people, different weeks, where people can just call in and ask questions, or it can be on a simple topic of, hey guys, you want to know how to build a new communication site. Let's kind of go through that process and show you, and kind of help you out so that if you want to go do it later, you can do that. Those webcast or internal WebEx meetings in some cases, or Teams meetings, can be really, really powerful. They can be recorded. They can be put back as videos back in the stream. But they give people the ability to kind of get that instant gratification. It's that help when I need it scenario that you kind of go. Classroom training still is important. There are opportunities for it, but you want to make sure that you kind of chunk it up and keep it short. Most classroom trainings don't need to be more than maybe 4 hours at a time, and they should have breaks in between each hour. You want to make sure that your users don't get tired, don't get overloaded with information, and that they're actually able to retain. So if part of that is someone up in a classroom teaching, also accompany it with exercises such as an innovation game or something like that, where people are getting engaged in the process, not just sitting in a seat for 4 or 5 hours. Virtual training, just like these, external webinars. There's a lot of blogs out there. And in some cases, if you're a developer and things like that, there's other applications that can be used to physically teach you kind of things as you go along. And then we have our site content managers. These are going to be those champions in a way, but these are not just the people who are really good at technology, but these are the people who have to own pieces of this. Own pieces of your intranet. If they are the content manager for finance, as an example, they're the ones who own that site and the contents that are there. They need to understand the risk of owning a site, what the rules are internally for the organization of being that kind of content manager, and actually how to work with SharePoint to be able to do it. So they need to have at least a good baseline of training to kind of be able to make that efficient. All right, so our managers, those of you who are online, this is where you guys can really kind of help come in and save the day a little bit. It's really hard to get buy-in from users when they don't understand why something is happening. Okay, and a lot of the times the answer is because we want to save money. A very, very logical solution. It's very important. We all understand how that world works. But that doesn't help someone whose job is going to significantly change based on the change. So for people, if you are in IT and you're trying to get management support for something, these are the things that is going to be kind of your key selling points to either being able to go from classic to modern, or to roll out Teams instead of Slack, or change something in the ecosystem. These are going to be the keys that you want to go to management with to help make your case. So the first one is definitely cost savings. If we do this, it will save this much money because we can save time and effort on this process, this process, this process. And Sally, who is taking 15 minutes to go do this at the end of the day, it can now take 5 minutes. Those are things that have a direct impact to the business and can show a return on investment right away. Okay. Take time and look at analytics. Office 365 has the ability to get a whole bunch of analytics out of how people are using it. Same thing with Teams is coming out as well in Yammer. You can look into third-party companies like tyGraph if you're really interested in like big Power BI dashboards to help show all of this. But the reason why analytics are important is because unless you know how people are actually using your intranet and what sites they're using and what content they're looking at, then you really don't know what people are doing and how to effectively roll out new training programs or ask questions. You don't know what's working and what isn't working besides keeping the platform up and running. So try to spend some time and get analytics on it, because it will also show you where those investments need to be made in the future and what's happening at the moment. Ease of management is a really good point to kind of put into play. If something is easier for your IT team to manage, either using PowerShell or something else, that they can spend less time working on one singular platform, or if you're an organization that only has one person that is the SharePoint person in IT, that person's going to be insanely busy. So being able to help ease the requirements off of them by either automation or new functionality that's come out is going to be a powerful thing to help make that support process go a little bit better. And the last one on this is better security features. So if you are moving to modern, you're moving to SharePoint Online, security is a very, very big conversation. It's the reason why a lot of people were scared to go to Office 365. In fact, now it's probably safer for you to go to Office 365 than try to maintain your on-prem farms. Microsoft has a lot more resources to probably do that.
Why is that?
So one common occurrence that I've heard over time is that, well, we're scared of our data getting out, and we're scared of this, that, and the other thing. And the reality is that Microsoft has to, as part of Office 365, and being able to hold their security for their data centers, they have a much higher level standard than most organizations have for their data that is required to help keep your data safe from other people getting their hands on it. If it goes down in the middle of the night, Microsoft has to work on that and help keep that going. The same thing like you guys would have to do on-prem. Microsoft also has all the reporting features to understand where security can happen, where governance is broken down, what information is being shared externally with outside of the organization, and ways to help lock that off. where a lot of the times in some of the old on-premise servers of SharePoint that we used to see, God killed a kitten and there was a single server install somewhere under someone's desk. And what would happen is the person who installed SharePoint originally, or that site owner, whoever kind of took over SharePoint, didn't really understand the security part of it. They just kind of put it in there and they said, all right, we're going to enable external sharing on all the sites just in case people need to do it. And that created a great big huge problem because now data was open to the external world without any kind of authentication process in some cases. And that ends up not being a good thing for a lot of organizations. So
very true.
Yeah, not a great thing. Several years ago, Liam Cleary used to do a really amazing session on hacking SharePoint. Because any SharePoint administrator, and a lot of us who use SharePoint all the time, had a list of all the backend URLs to get to backend document libraries or site settings or anything like that. And it was amazing how many organizations at the time hadn't pen tested their environments. They didn't test for weaknesses on where that data could be accessed. And it's really not that hard that if you knew the backend URL and all you had to do is figure out the domain name, you could pretty much get to any SharePoint environment for a very long time. And all you needed to do is get to one list that said maybe contacts or something like that. And a hacker could use social engineering to get to your environment. Most security risk is not the technology itself. Most security risks come from your users themselves and just surely not knowing any better. That's one reason why we want to consider kind of that governance site. But pretty important topic on that one. Security is definitely better in the cloud.
What about you downloading files?
You what?
What about you? Okay, so here I've got my on-prem server. It's very difficult to get files off the outside the company environment, but with Office 365 in the cloud, files a bit more available to be downloaded off it onto my personal laptop or my cell phone.
So it depends on the organization. In many organizations, you're not getting just general cloud accounts. In some cases, you have a VPN that you have to log into to get there. It depends on the organization. Some organizations have functionality installed with SharePoint, even online, to prevent downloads of documents if you're not on a company-approved device. It really can go down as granular as you absolutely needed to. But no matter what functionality you have, even like if you're in like the CIA or government, there are ways to get your hands on documents. And it is your responsibility as either an employee or an employer to make sure that people understand the risk of that and also understand the consequences if something gets out and ways to help prevent it. You absolutely should be able to download documents. You need to be able to work on documents. You need to be able to collaborate. Sometimes I want to take a document if I'm going on a plane and work on it offline. But the minute I'm back online, it needs to be uploaded back into SharePoint. It needs to stay there. The goal is we want to be able to help get rid of some of those circumstances where people are emailing documents to each other. Because that process is where you actually open up security. That can be kind of a bad thing. Plus, you want one source of truth for your documents. You don't want people naming things with V2, V5, V final, I promise at the end. You want to be able to keep one single source of truth and turn on versioning on the back end to kind of help those users know where that document lives and be able to work on it together. Okay. All right, so governance is a really important thing, and there's different ways to bring out governance for people. Like we said, we want to remove the sharp edges on things. And part of removing the sharp edges is knowing where they are. So in the past, we would write a great big huge governance document. We'd stick it on a shelf and say, yes, we have governance in our organization. No, that didn't quite happen the way we expected, did it? So we want to know where those guidelines are. Like, what are the big things, the big ticket things that if a user did this, we are either going to get sued, end up with an audit, end up in big trouble with the government, or that user is going to have a major problem within their department for whatever reason it may be. You need to know where those guidelines need to be. Okay. Second part is don't create shelfware. Governance documents are great, but they do nothing for the business and they do nothing for the regular end user who needs to actually understand what the rules are that are going. Okay. Allow for some flexibility. In the past, right now, the big conversation is a self-service provisioning of new sites. In the past, this was generally a very closed down process that IT had to create the site so that they could ensure that it either looked exactly the way brand wanted and that they controlled everything and micromanaged it, which made it extremely difficult for users to get their jobs done, and therefore users went around IT to go do something else. Allow for flexibility. It's one thing to say, hey, these are our general guidelines, but if you have another circumstance, come to us, let's have a conversation. And see if it's something we can work out. Be open to having that conversation. Okay. Think about business processes, not just SharePoint. Right now, SharePoint is a tool to help your users get their jobs done or help you store documents or help with specific processes. But understand that your users also may use external applications as well. Maybe they're using Jira, maybe they're using Wunderlist. Maybe there's other applications that you guys are using, Workday as an example, to help employees get their jobs done. If you're just thinking about the SharePoint piece, you may be missing out on what the process is that is causing them harm and the ability to fix it. So kind of think about some of those ideas. When to use what? Now, the great thing about the ecosystem is that there are 12 different ways that you can do something. The bad thing about the ecosystem is that there's 12 different ways that you can do something. Being able to help guide users within your organization to what either product they should use or service, or when should they use a team site versus a communication site and what kind of documents should go there and the permission structures. There is a lot going on around that. So create kind of a quick PowerPoint going, hey, is it I'm just talking one-on-one with someone? Great. Maybe that's email, maybe that's a phone call, maybe that's a team chat with that person. Is it a small group of people with another small group of people? Maybe I need to consider creating a team site where we can work on that together. Or, the other extreme on the other end is, do I need to send a message out to the entire organization and the entire org should have a conversation around that? In that case, I probably should create a Yammer group and use Yammer for that conversation. Create a quick little matrix to kind of help people and place it on that guidance site so that when people need to figure out, okay, where should I put this and how should I do this, they're going to have those rails to help guide them in the right solution. Okay. Self-service site creation is one of the best things out there. I know it's a very, very scary thing. You're like, I'm worried about sprawl. People are just going to create all this stuff. That's a good thing because it means people are using it. People are finding reasons to use it, and people are they're using it to the point where they are getting their jobs done. So while you want to make sure that, people probably aren't creating external sharing on their sites, you can control that from the admin side. Having the ability to create those things when they need them internally on their own without having to go through a very, very carefully monitored process is going to help speed up the ability for adoption. And being able to understand roles and responsibilities. Am I an end user? Am I a power user? Am I one of those champions? Am I a site owner? If I'm a site owner, what kind of governance policies do I need to abide by? What kind of training do I need to have to make sure that I can do this efficiently? That is going to be different versus someone who is just consuming content on a site. Different roles, different responsibilities. Every 6 months, should that person who's a site owner or a designated site owner go through a short, 2-hour training refresher just to remember hey guys, you own this. It's your responsibility to do X, Y, and Z. Is your site still needed? Great. We will keep it up. Is it not needed? Great. Can we go ahead and archive it or remove it or do something to help manage that sprawl as you kind of go forward? All right. So I know we were kind of coming up short on time, so I'll go ahead and I'll show you guys a quick idea of a guidance site that you guys can actually use really quick, if you can see it. So this is one that we built out for Shire Pharmaceuticals at the time, and it's literally just a communication site that we built in. You know, it has a URL of Office 365. You could literally make it training. You can make it whatever is going to be the best word that people are going to associate in your organization and find it. But it's everything from like, hey, getting started with this and my new, the Hub Champions Network is their Champions Network. It's a Yammer network. You know, hey, I'm a site owner. What do I need to do? What do I need to start with? Bunch of frequently needed resources and the different kinds of services, from everything from communication sites to team sites. But hey, I need something for external sharing. How do I go about that? You know, planning guides, different things to kind of help people get moving in the right direction. And this can kind of become your first line of defense versus people just calling the help desk. Now, you always will still have people calling the help desk without going here, but this is at least a place that becomes a source of truth for content, how you roll this out in your organization, different information on training, how to do things, and you know, also being able to meet other people that are like-minded and can help out with things. Okay. All right. So kind of coming through here, just a quick things. So the things we want to think about with adoption, we want to engage users. Remember, bottom up is going to be a lot more efficient than top down when it comes to user adoption. Get people excited and wanting to use the platform. Training in a classroom is not enough. Think about the different ways that people learn. Create those videos, create the Yammer network, create different ways to have people be able to access and find content when they need it on how to do something. Have management support, and that's not just from IT. Make sure that you also have someone from the business, and those two need to work together to be able to support this from both the management side on the technical side and rollout to the business side doing the change management and how do we communicate these changes and updates to the general population of end users. How do we make that successful? Talking about change management, make sure that you can support the process is clear, and that it's repeatable between departments, between organizations, etc. Governance, again, just remove the sharp edges, allow people to get their jobs done, but just make sure that, you know, they're not going to do something unintentionally that could harm the organization in the process. And the last part we didn't quite cover, but is super important, is make sure the content you put on your sites is relative, it's structured, it has information that's easily accessed for people, and that they are not just reading through paragraphs and paragraphs of content. Users don't read on computer screens. We kind of scan really quick to find information. So make sure that it's relevant. If you need to work with a UI UX person to kind of help you design what those sites should kind of look like, and how content should be laid out in an effective manner, that is a great opportunity to work with someone to help you guys get those and become a little bit structured and be a little bit better. So with that, I will actually turn you back over to Peter. We literally just came down to the wire.
Okay, thanks, Darcy, very much. Any questions? So, Darcy, one of the problems is that you said nobody reads anything on the screen. Nobody reads anything at all, do they, really?
Very rarely. I love to read, but the reality is if I'm trying to get my work done, the last thing I'm going to want to do is read pages and pages of content that I have to scan through to figure out what is going on. I'd rather have I am a firm believer in instant gratification when it comes to SharePoint sites. Give me the information that I need, tell me what's important, and tell me why I should use it so that I can actually go be effective.
True. All right. Okay. Very, very good. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions coming through, but thank you very much, Darcy.
No worries. Well, thank you guys. Enjoy your afternoon in New York and wherever you may come from.
Okay. Thank you, Darcy.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ivan. Bye-bye.